Park the chairs. Your chairs won't that way. I don't care, y'all have to sit down. Okay, so with what we've been going over today, we've been talking about like the squishy race to the top. What was the key lesson we learned there? Or what were we at? Anybody?
Just get it the highest, make it the much size possible.
No.
That was the goal of the project, but the goal of the lesson was to plan your moves. A little bit.
A little
To
bit,
be
yeah.
innovative.
Iterative.
To start something, to talk about it, work as a team, fail at it, try again if you have the time, and do it all within a very specific time, with limited resources for the most part.
Yes, yes. It is to come up with a solution, and not just any solution, but your minimum viable solution or product, or minimum viable product. Okay, MVP. So you could have really just took 3 spaghetti strings, made a single TP, and put your marshmallow on top, and you would have been done. The next iteration would have been, okay, how do I make it taller? I add this. What were they doing here in this video?
Looking for the most efficient way to sell hamburgers.
Right, so they started off with a restaurant. They wanted, with a goal of making a hamburger in 30 seconds. Okay, so they went and found a tennis court of all things and mapped out their restaurant. And they kept iterating it until they got it to where they wanted it to be. All right, that's the iterative process. We're not satisfied with how the product currently is. We want to keep going. We want to make it better, improve. Small incremental change is going to get you to the finish line. Let's put it that way. Okay. So whenever we go down this path and we're looking at solving problems and implementing solutions, we need to keep several things in mind. The very first thing, and we're going to be reinforcing this throughout the rest of the week and the next 3 weeks after this. It has to have desirability, feasibility, and viability. If a solution is not desirable, do you want it?
No.
If it is not feasible, can we implement it?
No.
If it is not viable, is it worth it? Okay. So another way to think of this, whenever we go into this, is you can also look at it this way. Is it real? Is it worth pursuing? And will it help us win? Okay. We call this a real win worth it model. It is used a lot in design thinking, but it really has a lot of application. Because you don't want to chase a solution that's not real, or chase a solution to a problem that's not real. You don't want to implement a $10 billion program to help save someone 5 minutes of time. So it's not worth it. Cost-benefit analysis. If the cost is high and the benefit is low, it's not worth it. And then win. If we implement this solution, will we win? Now, by using win, am I kind of putting an end on it? By using that word right here? When you think of win, what do you think of? This first thing comes to your mind.
The best.
Okay?
For me, it's like I'm done.
Okay.
I got it, magic crossing the finish line.
Okay. So we're going to challenge that mindset and that thought and how you interpret win. Win doesn't mean you're done. Win doesn't mean the best. Win means I got to this goal. Now how do I get to the next goal? All right. Turn this into a long, literal, or infinite process. Because you're going to get to where you win, and you're going to go right back to the beginning. And you're going to keep going until that process, until there's not anything you can do. And that can take years. But you got to start somewhere. Start small. Start with your minimum viable product. All right? Maximum impact with the least amount of effort. Y'all saw the cards out there from Gabe Boyd? That's an MVP. We wanted to find a way to connect the end user to the Spark Cell office and SIF funds and leverage those funds appropriately. And while we're at it, we wanted to know how can we cultivate ideas from the lowest levels without them getting filtered by the levels of bureaucracy. I would give them barcode. How much does that, what does that really cost us? Nothing. What does it really take to implement? Not a whole lot, just get some barcodes printed. We don't have to have them on the coasters and all that stuff. We can just take that barcode and email it out or print it out and just stick it everywhere. It's minimal, but it's a viable solution because it's cheap, it has reach, and it's simple. But not every MVP has to be a problem. That's another thing that this video teaches us. Right? Yeah, they wanted to create fast food fast and cheap because when McDonald's was formed, our country was undergoing a shift of cultural norms. Right? We were more mobile. Oil was cheap. Cars were starting to become more affordable. So America, Americans were mobile, and they didn't want to get out of their car. They pretty much lived in those things for a while. They drove everywhere. So that was their driving factor. But when they went through and they saw this trend occurring, they're like, hey, how can I make money off of this? Well, they come up, they get their burger, and they walk off. 30 seconds, I can get fast customer turnover. And I did forget where I was going with that. So, my bad. Never mind. Just reminding myself. A process. They didn't invent the hamburger. They didn't invent fast food. They didn't invent that building, those cooking supplies. They invented a process of how to flow their cooking or put their assembly of their food. Okay? So when we look at innovation, we look at minimal viable products. They do not fall in a products only category. They're going to fall within the 3 Ps: product, processes, or policies. Who can name an example of a policy or a process that's innovative?
Henry Ford, the same kind of concept. He didn't invent the automobile. He invented the process to automated industry to mass produce Model Ts.
Okay. Yes. What about your work center? Your base, your wing? Do you think of anything?
Just any process?
Yeah.
Okay, so process of a phase inspection.
Good, explain it.
Phase inspection is the jet gets, first off, we establish what needs to be done during that phase. We have a pre-phase meeting, and then we'll put it into phase. We'll work through the work cards, and it'll go through its discovery, so they'll find gigs for us to fix, and then we'll fix them, and then we'll push it out.
Okay. Kind of, sort of, that's more process improvement. It's more CPI, Lean Six Sigma.
So our cold spray, we use it to repair magnesium castings. And there's previously no way to do it.
So cold spray is not the innovative technology, right? Or the
Yeah.
innovation?
The ability to repair magnesium castings.
Right. The processes we built to utilize cold spray, which hasn't made it to everybody. Because we can't do it here.
I don't think it.
We got told no. Try doing it. Anyway, so you're gonna have, whenever you go out and you start looking at solutions, they're gonna fall within these are this realm here. Okay. Now, one thing to remember, if you're either gonna have, you're gonna have more than just one of these pieces to your MVP. Okay? If I implement a product, do I just come out here and let's say, I don't know, I introduce a new maintenance system that allows us to automatically track maintenance documentation errors. All right. Say it's an AI system or machine learning that scans forms and automatically detects everything on those forms. And I just put it there and I implement it. Is it gonna work?
No.
Why?
You don't have a policy or a process to use it.
Right. They support each other, especially a product. You need to figure out your processing and your policy to help support it. So think of a triangle when you are implementing a new product. Your product is here at the top. You need the other P's to support that product. Now, if I'm implementing a new process, do I need a product? No, not always. But if I'm implementing a policy, I probably am gonna have to have a process for that policy to fit properly, right? So it depends on what you're going to do. So you may have to have all three things, all three components within your MVP, or you may only need one or two. But if you have a product you're gonna implement, in the long run, you're gonna need to start thinking about the processes behind it and the policies behind it. Initially, let's just get that product. Let's get that minimum viable product, okay? We actually have a great example of it sitting in the back room. The camera?
Oh, yeah.
So one of the projects that Cap and Wedge have been working on is how do we operate our aircraft in a GPS denied environment? GPS denied means we can't use GPS because they're jamming us in an enemy airspace. So how do we navigate? Because GPS is our way to navigate. Well, they came up with a solution, and I will let Cap explain a little bit more.
Yeah, not to harp on, he said it like a product isn't a physical thing. We can expound on that a little bit more too. It can be, the joke for them is it can be a button or something on our website to create a change. But, so this goes in a window, GPS denied capabilities. There's a lot of aspects to it that come into play. One of the biggest things is like, if you create this, you have to mark targets on the ground. If you mark targets on the ground, you've just removed an entire career field because it's done by people. You create an AI system that can mark targets on the ground, create a map, put a digital globe on your phone, basically. This is a rough, actually goes like this, points down. This is a rough MVP that you can pass it around. Just be careful with it. 2 hands. I'll say you need 2 hands because, so to get a rough MVP, that 3D printed framework that goes on there, we had to ask Motorola to make the framework. They were the fastest turnaround. It cost $80,000 for them just to make that frame that goes in there. The camera, the GPU and everything else that's on there, that's like $1,000. So if we can go through our GSA system and use mid-IR, other boards, other things like that, and actually get it even cheaper and make it do more. But we took an MVP. It was the cheapest, smallest way to make something. It hooks up to a laptop, it runs iterations, and we can now fly without GPS. It's also faster, it turns out. We didn't plan on it being faster. It's like exponentially faster. It takes 6 seconds for GPS. This can go 1.3 all the way down to 0.003, which nothing calculates that fast. If you know navigation, this is the fastest thing that's kind of out right now. Nobody knows, it's just in my back room. So, MVP, that's kind of what it is.
And all it does is, it takes pictures of the ground as you're flying over.
We reiterate it. It's got a new iteration on it.
Yeah.
We actually have one that you take a commercial GoPro and it actually slaps onto the GoPro, and then you put the GoPro in the window. It works for the C-130 and the B-1 now. So like,
Nice.
that's the first model.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right there's a great example. Another one, one of the last classes, they were circling their brain. They were trying to go after fixing the Air Force fitness program. Okay?
Nice.
Great program, right? We all love it. Well, the problem statement they had was people had general higher anxiety, more stress when they went to take a test because of the career implications of a failed test or assessment, because they're not technically tests, right? So they wanted to try and find a way to remove that stress and that fear of failing that assessment. So they racked their brains. They were trying to rewrite AFIs and all this other stuff. And really what it came down to, they added a button to the website. And it took no money. They just had to find out the right person to talk to. And it was a matter of seconds.
They didn't get approval. It wasn't the right person to talk to get approval.
So they actually tried to go through the hierarchy to find that person to talk to approve it. And they got stonewalled every turn. They finally figured out some individual sitting at one of the directors at the half. And that individual, is enlisted, Master Sergeant. So they're like, yeah, I like the idea. I'll get back to you. They never heard back. So stonewall. Then we made a connection to the person who actually codes the site, and we added a button. And all that button does is allows you to select a date range. So if you failed a fitness assessment 5 years ago, as a tech sergeant, do you think that's gonna impact your chances of getting a promote now, must promote?
That's what certain commanders.
Yes. So, what they found when they're in all their research, and they were, reading AFIs, and I give them hands down because they actually read all of them. Commanders don't have to look at that. Nowhere in the AFI does it say that for a tech sergeant up for promotion to master who is up for force distribution, all it says is the last 3 years. But when we send up our fitness rep, it has our entire history, all the way back to the implementation of AFMS 2. Same thing with me. I had to explain exemptions from 2014. Why? What impact does that have? So we just basically put an option for the member to select a date range to give them exactly what the AFI says they need to look at. Minimum viable product. Cost nothing, at max impact, or it will, once people figure out it's there. Because it's gonna start a conversation. So that one, it didn't go after a product. It actually went after part of the process of how we go and pull that. But then we kind of left it there for a reason. We don't want to put a policy in place to drive that, because then we're going to start kind of gumming up the systems a little bit. So this one, we're going to let culture and social norms take its toll on this one. As soon as people start seeing it there, and they know they have a date range, if you knew you could only pull 3 years of your fitness assessment rep to set it up with your EPRs for your declaration that only covers that 3 years, would you do that versus the entire rep?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if someone comes to you and says, why do I only have 3 years here?
That's all it's needed.
Right. That's what we need to happen at the field level. So sometimes you can't dictate the change or the implementation of your solution from top down. It has to boil up from the bottom.
Jack, I just want to ask one thing. If you get in those conversations, they start out, do not email me and do not tell people that it came from this course. Please, for the love of God.
You can so totally email me because I will not be checking that email.
They have told me to say this.
Anyway.
It's on,
Yeah.
it's on the new website. It's not on Apple's. We got ahead of the curve.
So AFM 2 is
Conversation. The new website's on my peers. It's already on there to implement it. Like nobody knows.
Nobody knows how to even use that system.
And I will get there.
Our EFDMs are fumbling.
That's how far ahead that team got with what they figured out and who they talked to. They're talking to A1. Like they got so far ahead, they realized there was a new system. We found people that were coding a new system. We are with them.
Yeah.
Like they cracked it.
Wow.
So that is really the whole lecture on the mobile front. It doesn't stop. We keep hitting this. We keep hitting the desirable, feasible, viable aspects of solutions. We keep going back to the 3 Ps. We keep going back to what is your MVP, and we keep going back to the central question, why? Whenever you develop a solution, why needs to be at the very forefront of your thought process. Okay? Any questions? No? It all makes sense? You all good to go? You're experts now? Okay? We'll see you next week.
Yeah, it's thank you. I really appreciate it.